The Imaginative Hobbyist presents Batman Beyond Rebirth, written by Max Z.S. In 1989, Gotham City celebrated its 200th anniversary. Exciting prospects turned grim when a madman threatened to wreak chaos by unleashing harmful chemicals into the streets. What stood in his way was a man in the guise of a creature of the night. Many witnessed the caped crusader's heroic defeat of the clown prince of crime, including young Jimmy Robertson from his bedroom window. He watched as the Batplane came flying down and crashed the Joker's parade. He saw it flying towards the clown prince of crime, who with one strike took the plane down right by the cathedral. Using the pair of binoculars his father got him for his birthday, Jimmy saw the Joker take a woman into the church and shut the door. He kept his eyes on the fallen Batplane, hoping that Gotham City's hero was still alive. When Batman emerged from the wreckage, Jimmy burst into excitement and cheered him on. Batman entered the cathedral, and everything that was about to take place was sheltered from public eyesight. Needless to say, the suspense was too great to put into words. Jimmy paced around his room nervously, hoping that the Dark Knight would come out victorious. He had taken much interest in the Caped Crusader in recent weeks. Some time ago, he and his parents moved into the city. One night, they got lost and found themselves in a dark alley where they were mugged by two men. His parents went to the police, but when they found the two, they were beaten up badly. As they were taken away in an ambulance, they kept saying that a giant bat attacked them. More and more news stories about the Batman came up in the paper and on the television. It was instantly accepted by the Robertson family that it was the Batman that had gone to pay a visit to the crooks that night. Though vigilantism had become a strong subject of conversation almost everywhere you traveled in the city, the Batman had the complete support of the Robertsons. The police surrounded the cathedral. They shined their lights to the very top where they saw Batman and the Joker have their final confrontation. Realizing his binoculars could not get close enough, Jimmy took out his telescope. He saw a helicopter with the Joker's face encircling the tower, let out a ladder, and saw the madman climb his way to escape from the scene. Batman and the woman were both clinging onto the edge of the building for dear life. The caped crusader reached for his grappling gun and hooked the foot of the Joker onto the gargoyle statue right by. The weight of the statue was too much, and the Joker fell to his death. The next hour gave a sight nobody in Gotham City would have expected to see. The police and the Batman were working side by side. That night was 50 years ago. Today, in 2039, Gotham City celebrates its 250th anniversary, and little Jimmy Robertson, now 59, is a history teacher at Hamilton High School. Jim came to the school in one of those fancy hover cars that recently hit the market. He drove into the parking lot, catching the attention of several other teachers and students, who expressed disappointment in learning that the driver was not some young hotshot, but instead old Mr. Robertson, who was always late to keep up with the times. Indeed, had Jim had it his way, he wouldn't be driving in one of those hover cars. He would instead be driving his regular car, the normal sort that would come with 4 wheels and run on gas. He was only driving a hover car because it was the best option to rent for the time being, as his actual car was being repaired at the auto shop. There had been no accident. Instead, Jim's car had been vandalized by members of the Jokers, a gang of hoodlums who idolized Jack Napier. The bell rang and Jim's class officially began. His class had been studying the history of Gotham City. This week, they would learn all about the city in the year 1989. Not only had the city turned 200 years old, but it was also the first year in which the mysterious and illustrious Batman's career in fighting crime began. As he was about to begin, the school principal opened the door and led Terry McGinnis into the classroom. All eyes gazed upon the troubled youth as he made his way to his seat. Jim could tell by the bruise on Terry's face that he had been in yet another fight. He felt bad for the boy, because although he had a history of detention and suspension, and even spent a small amount of time in juvenile hall, Terry was not someone who looked to cause trouble. Instead, trouble found him. Jim forced a cough to break the uncomfortable silence in the room as McGinnis took his seat. He went into discussing Batman and how leading up to the events of Gotham City's 200th celebration, he was considered an urban legend. Only 2 reporters working for the press believed that he was real and set out to prove his existence, Alexander Knox and Vicky Vale. Vale was new to the city and soon found herself entangled with 3 prominent men: the wealthy Bruce Wayne, the heroic Batman, and the Joker. In an interview with the Gotham Gazette, Ms. Vale explained that her involvement with Bruce Wayne led to the Joker attempting to kidnap her in the hope of holding her ransom to make headlines. Somehow, Batman learned that the Joker had tricked Ms. Vale into going to the Gotham Museum by making her believe that she was to meet Mr. Wayne and came in to save her at just the right time. Following a chase through the streets, he took her to his underground base of operations, the Batcave, and gave important information that would help the citizens of the city avoid falling prey to the Joker's dangerous chemical combinations. In the chaos of the city parade, Batman saved thousands of lives when he thwarted the Joker's plan to unleash deadly gas onto the streets when he used his Batplane to take all the gas-filled balloons out from the city and into the night sky. As everyone ran for their lives, the Joker found Ms. Vale and took her high above the nearest tower and used her as bait to finally rid himself of Gotham's costumed hero. Despite the odds, Batman defeated the Joker, who fell from the top of the cathedral onto the solid ground. The police found his body with a frightening grin still on his face and the laughter of a small device from his pocket. In the aftermath, Batman had established an alliance with the law of Gotham and gave them a signal to light up in the sky if they ever needed him. For many years, the bat signal shined in the sky, and Batman saved the city from many dangers, from the likes of the unethical Dr. Hugo Strange and his monster men, the inhuman Oswald Cobblepot, and former Gotham District Attorney Harvey Dent, who took to crime following an accident that disfigured one side of his face. But one night, the bat signal lit up the night sky, and Batman did not come. That was 20 years ago. The bell rang, and every student got up to leave for their next class. McGinnis was the last to exit the room. As Jim sat down to have his breakfast the next morning, a breaking news story blew up on his phone. It read, "Wayne Powers employee found dead at home." The report included a statement by Commissioner Barbara Gordon, where she said that there were no suspects at this given time, but evidence suggested a break-in. The name of the victim was Warren McGinnis, the father of Terry McGinnis. He had met him a few years ago when Terry was a freshman. He was a good, well-meaning, and honest man, who despite how much he had been juggling in life seemed dedicated to make sure that his son got a decent education and would grow into an upstanding citizen of the city. Who could have done such a thing? The Jokers? That was his first guess, but there hadn't been any evidence to suggest it was them, as they always liked to leave a crude-looking smiley face at the scene of their crimes. A burglar was his second guess, but the report said nothing had been stolen. He turned to the cross hanging on his wall and prayed to God that the McGinnis family would be all right. Neither Jim nor anyone else had seen Terry at school the rest of the week. He had been allowed to take some time off to be with family and prepare for his father's funeral, which was held on Sunday. On Monday, when Terry had returned to school, he entered the classroom with no sadness in his eyes, only determination. From the start of class to the bell ringing, his eyes were focused on just the screen in which his teacher typed on, writing down everything in his notebook. Never had Jim seen Terry this interested in his studies. The bell rang, and every one of Jim's students left the room. Everyone except for Terry, who approached him with questions about Batman. In a 5-minute conversation that had felt like it went on longer, he answered all of the boys' questions. Terry had thanked his teacher and walked away. Jim was left scratching his head, but would give it more thought after the next school hour. What motivated McGinnis to want to learn more about Batman? Could he find the Caped Crusader to be a source of inspiration? And if so, what for exactly? Whatever it could have been, he hoped that the teenager did not have reckless aspirations. The stoplight turned red, and he halted the car till it turned green again. Driving up next to him was a gang of jokers in their hovercycles. Their leader turned his attention to Jim. He got off of his bike and knocked on the window. Jim tried to avoid eye contact with the punk, but was left with no choice but to turn his gaze towards the young thug as he jumped onto the hood of his car. He had long, messy hair, made to look green like his idol. The makeup on his face looked like it had been on there for a really long time. There was a cut on his upper lip that stretched all the way up to his ears, as if he had a forever grin. The sight was made worse with the red lipstick painted over the disfigurement. His eyes were bloodshot, as if he had been indulging in a lot of nasty substances and hadn't slept for a day or two. There was something animalistic with the way he was hunched over on top of the hood. His tall and thin frame was a bit snake-like. Had they been splicing their DNA with an animal? It is becoming all the rage these days. Shui, as the kids would say. Jim looked at the stoplight to see if anything had changed, but with the slight adjustment to the position of his head, the gang leader put their hand on the glass. Using their other hand, they snapped their fingers and signaled over a tall and lean member of their gang, who handed him a really big hammer. He took a swing and smacked the window, creating a small crack in the glass. He hit the glass again and again, slowly making his way into the car. Finally, he broke in. Tiny shards of glass hit Jim in the face, making tiny cuts on his mouth and forehead. The gang leader grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and brought Jim's face closer to his. Jim dared not utter a word, let alone try to show emotion. He figured whatever he could do would only quicken whatever hell the young punk was about to do to him. Suddenly, the sound of a jet boomed in the sky. It startled all of the jokers and Jim, and both parties looked above to see where the noise had come from. In the blink of an eye, a blur of black came swooping in and abducted the gang leader into the air. He was dropped at least from 15 feet into the air onto the hood of an empty parked car on the left side of the street. The jokers shifted their gaze away from Jim. One by one, the black blur came to take a member of the gang for a little ride in the sky, meeting the same fate as their leader. Eventually, it was down to the gang's largest and most physically intimidating member, who carried around a crowbar waiting to strike. The blur swooped down and kicked the tall clown in the chest, but the height and the weight of the tall hooligan slowed down the blur, who now could be seen in full. They were wearing a sleek, cybernetic suit of armor that was all black, but the most attention-grabbing features were their pointed-eared cowl and the symbol on their chest. It was the bat symbol, but glowing red. After all these years, could the Batman have finally returned? The tall clown was not looking to ask questions, and swung his crowbar at the would-be Dark Knight, who dodged his attacks and began unleashing his own, proving to be successful as he soon brought him down to their knees. It did not take long for Jim to deduce that this was not the same Batman who revealed himself as Gotham's hero in 1989. This Batman was younger, thinner, and moved like a person with little to no combat experience. Though he managed to best all of the Jokers, he was sloppily successful in his endeavor. He turned to lock sight onto Jim, but then quickly turned away, as if he was nervous to reveal any hint of his true identity. He put his forefinger onto where his human ears would be located and began speaking to someone. It was a brief conversation, and the next second he took off with his jet boots into the air. Jim took the opportunity to drive away from the scene. What an exciting few minutes that was. The next day, Jim took his car into the auto shop to get it repaired and was given yet another rental. This time, the sort of car he was used to driving in. On the way to work, the news couldn't stop talking about the new Batman. There was a spectrum of opinions on the matter, ranging from whether or not this was the same Batman that had been a hero to the city for many years, or an imitator. Regardless, there was a new vigilante on the streets. Another interesting story had been reported. Bruce Wayne had finally decided to return to Wayne Powers Enterprises to take a more hands-on role in its business ventures. He was seen with a cane. Most attributed it to old age. Mr. Wayne said it was due to injury, jokingly saying that the reason for it was because he had gotten into a fight with some tall meathead who tossed him onto the ground. Just as he changed the station, he saw in the school parking lot a sharp, jet-black car pulling in. Exiting the vehicle was Terry McGinnis with an actual smile on his face, and, to further Jim's surprise, Bruce Wayne as well. McGinnis had become hired as Bruce Wayne's assistant and mentee. For the last few days, Jim was concerned about which direction McGinnis's life would go next, but this news made him relieved. As there was now a light shining onto the youth after so many unfortunate events, and after witnessing a new Batman save his life last night, he believed a light was maybe finally shining onto Gotham City once again.